Hello everyone, DM Gashbad here. It has been a long time since I've done one of these battle reports. If anyone's curious about what's taken me so long, why I've taken such a big break, I would honestly be surprised. I don't think anyone's interested in the reasons why it's taken me so long, so I'm just going to skip right ahead and we're going to go straight into the rematch of my game against the Orcs and Goblins. I'm using my Vampire Counts, the Angels of More army. This is my second game in round 4. The name of the scenario is called Bones to Pick. I've mentioned this before in the previous battle report, so I'm not going to go into too much detail. There's just bonus points to be had for getting rid of the units that the player who is currently not playing, the Tomb King's player, the most hated units in either of our armies give each other bonus victory points. So worth double victory points for the purposes of determining who's the victor, and also there's some lore points that crop up at the very end of the game, which only apply to the very big multiplayer game that happens at the end of this whole Warhammer 8th edition Fantasy Battles Escalation League that we've currently been running through. And we're actually kind of winding down here. We're coming up to the final battle in a little bit. At least in real time we are. I still have a bunch of these battle reports to do. We have this round to get through, the next round, and then the big multiplayer battle is coming up. Anyway, you are currently looking at my 700-point Vampire Counts army. This is the Angels of More. That's my level 2 Necromancer with the ruby ring in the very center. That is Ethrak Crowfather. And because I yet again did not get to paint all my zombies, I have taken a second hero instead. That's Mr. Grimm, my Cairn Wraith. Behind them, I have 24 Crypt Ghouls with a Ghast. Those are the Dwellers Beyond. To the left, we have the Doomed Hunters. That is my small unit of skeletons. That's basically my Necromancer bunker. That's 11 skeletons, light armor, shields. They have a champion and a musician. Behind them are my Crypt Horrors. That's the Stone Guardians. Over on the right, we have the Stygian Fairy. That is my Corpse Cart. And all the way over on the right, we have Bunny and Kindling, who are my Fellbats. Again, we're facing off against Captain Jackpot's Goblin Horde. We have Captain Jackpot himself. He is a Goblin Warboss. He has a great weapon and the Talisman of Protection. He has got a Battle Standard Bearer in there with just a great weapon. Behind that, he has 30 Night Goblins with standards, nets, and a single Fanatic. We have 2 units of Squig Herds. Each one has 12 squigs and 7 herders. In the back, that big spider monster is a mangler squig. In the center, we have a single common troll, and on the right, we have a goblin wolf chariot. So here we have the battlefield all set up and ready for battle. We have our terrain, which we roll up randomly every time, and so in the far left corner, that is the Anvil of Vol. That is a hill that gives flaming attacks to everyone within so many inches. Anyway, I've got a lot of regenerating stuff, so I don't really want to be fighting around that, so when it was my turn to place a piece of terrain, I tucked it way in the corner so that hopefully most of the fighting won't be happening around that. We also have 2 swamps. I do kind of like that how, just through luck, a lot of these rounds of these the campaign have sort of themed themselves. I think round 2 mostly had buildings, and there was one where we were fighting over, of course there's the tower that was set up. Well, now it seems like we're all fighting over a dismal swamp because we keep rolling up lots and lots of swamps. I believe the one on the right is Chemerian Quicksand. I can't exactly remember what the one on the left is. But we're all deployed up. I believe my most hated unit, the one that my opponent is going to want to kill, is my Crypt Horrors, which I've kind of left, I've just said, here, Crypt Horrors, take care of my whole right flank. Keep all those squigs and manglers and chariots off my back. So good luck over there. Anyway, and the central squig herd, I believe, is the one that I get bonus points for destroying. So I go ahead and roll up the first turn, and I'm going to go and kind of stomp forward a little bit. I'm going to send my Crypt Horrors flanking right just a touch, because I don't think that most of that stuff is going to want to walk through that swamp. They're not going to want to spend a lot of time in there, so the most dangerous stuff is going to come around it for right now. So I'm sending them off in that direction. I'm keeping my Fellbats back because they're extremely useful. I'm also sending my Corpse Cart wide. I'm sending them off to the left a little bit, try and outflank my opponent's stuff as they come charging forward. Most importantly, though, I have taken Mr. Grimm, my Wraith, and I have shot him outside of the unit. Now, my opponent doesn't have any magic. He's got no magic users. So he doesn't really have anything to worry about except getting charged by stuff, and right now he's a little bit far away. So he's got a 12-inch move. He's going to buzz straight forward, and he's going to make towards that Mangler Squig, see if he can kill him off like he did last round. Anyway, just cause lots of problems, lots of things for my opponent to think about. In my magic phase, the only spell that I get off... Oh, by the way, the spells that I rolled up are Invocation of Nehek, I'm always going to take that, and Gaze of Nagash, which is the nice 2d6 strength 4 hits. So anyway, my opponent is going to shut down Gaze of Nagash. Invocation of Nehek isn't going to do anything for me right now because I haven't taken any casualties, but I am going to get the Ruby Ring, the Bound Fireball spell off, and I am going to blow up 2 handlers and 1 squig from the unit that currently has the bounty on it. So it is my opponent's turn, and the bounty squig unit fails its animosity, so it's just going to sit there right like that. The squig herd off to the right, they're going to move towards the swamp. They're going to stop right at the edge. They don't want to spend any more time in that than they absolutely have to. If they actually hadn't moved in, then they'd have to take dangerous terrain tests and possibly take casualties, because that's what you do when you march in the swamp. The chariot is going to go off to the right there, and the mangler squig is also going to just turn down the side of the board as far away from my stuff as possible. It does not want to get killed off by that wraith like last time. The troll is actually flanking off to the left a bit. So our 2 armies are kind of spreading out a little bit, trying to keep each other's armies from getting around the sides of the flanks. So I've realized that I've stuck myself out a little bit too far, so in my next movement phase, Mr. Grimm does not like how those squigs are charging up on him, because those squigs are going to eat that wraith given time. So he goes and buzzes straight back into the line and says, "Hey guys, how's it going? There's a lot of bad guys over there." Same thing with my horrors. They kind of reform a little bit to try and get some support from the rest of the army. They don't want to just face all those guys off by themselves. And the rest of the things just move a little bit here and there. In the magic phase, I've switched targets. I have now moved towards the more threatening squig unit that's at the edge of the swamp. I use the Ruby Ring of Ruin on that. My opponent lets that go through. I kill a single squig. But then I go and cast some Gaze of Nagash, and I get Irresistible Force, which could be a real problem, or it could be great. Starting off on the not great side of things, I only managed to kill off 3 squigs, which is not terribly impressive, because these squigs have no armor, no saves of any kind, and they're only toughness 3. And with 2d6 strength 4 hits, I was kind of hoping for a little bit better. In return, I get some kind of detonation miscast. My wizard doesn't die, but he does take a wound from the explosion, and he also goes and blows up 10 out of 11 of the skeletons in his bunker unit. And this is because that, unlike a lot of players, I don't put my wizard on the corners, because I'm not thinking very clearly. I often just don't do it. I put him in the center of the unit for whatever reason, and that means that when I blow up like everybody. So yeah, so that probably wasn't a great exchange as far as what I killed of my stuff versus what I killed of my opponent's stuff, but you know, hey, my wizard is still on the board. It is really important that I do keep that 1 skeleton, because then I can go and regrow them in future rounds. But right now, Ethrak Crowfather is feeling a little exposed. His bunker is not as bunker-like as he would like. So it is Orc and Goblin turn, and they are feeling a bit more confident now that the Wraith has moved back and that their opponent's general has blown up a bunch of his own guys. So we have the Mangler Squig moving straight back into the action there. So is the Chariot. The Night Goblins advance a little bit. The Squigs on the right advance cautiously. They do not march. They just creep a little bit into the swamp. And the Squigs in the center, they get their act together. They pass their animosity, and they move up to the edge of the swamp like their brothers did last round. And now we have a shooting phase. I forgot to mention this. The goblins on the wolf chariot have short bows, so they're going to move in range and they are going to take pot shots at the skeleton unit. Now this is a big deal, because if any of those hits land, these guys are only toughness 3. If he gets any wounds through, that means he's either going to wipe out that skeleton unit and it can't come back, or he's going to kill off my necromancer and the whole army starts to fall apart. So he moves within range. It's tough shots, but he goes and he fires his 3 bow shots, and he doesn't come up with any wounds. Either it's misses or no wounds or whatever. It was a little bit of long odds, but man, it wouldn't have taken a lot of luck for him to get a really good payoff out of that shooting phase. But fortunately for me, nothing came of it. Oh, and I forgot to mention this. In the movement phase, the goblins advanced to the point where they came in range of my corpse cart. Now, they have that single fanatic that they can send out. The fanatic isn't going to do a whole lot against the corpse cart. The corpse cart is toughness 4, and it has a 4-up regeneration. So instead, he goes and sails that fanatic straight in front of my ghouls. And if he has learned anything from these games, he knows I love charging through fanatics with my ghouls, usually to disastrous results for me. So this was a good idea, and the Fanatic goes like a really long distance, so he sails forward and just parks himself right in front of my most dangerous unit. So it is my turn, and I decide not to be an idiot this round. So I don't charge my ghouls into that Night Goblin unit with his Battle Standard Bearer and his General and sending him through that Fanatic to take a lot of damage. So I'm not going to do that. I've done that a number of times. It hasn't panned out for me. I'm going to learn from my mistakes. But what I am going to do is I'm going to take my Corpse Cart, who is Swift Stride, even though it's super slow, and I'm going to send him into that Troll that's over there. I think that Corpse Cart can eventually beat that Troll, especially on the charge. Probably won't, get him on the charge unless he fails a break test, but, I've got 4-up regen, he's got 4-up regen, I got a pile of attacks. I can get in there in such a way that I'm not going to get flanked by those Night Goblins this round. I like this combat. That's what I'm going for. The Mangler Squig went a little bit further forward than I think my opponent probably would like, which meant that it was in range of my Fellbats. So yeah, I don't want to think about that thing anymore. So I'm going to send Bunny and Kindling out to go drain the blood of that giant wrecking ball. And that's what they do. So they march forward, they hop over my guys, they land on the Mangler Squig. Everybody kills everybody. It's a big shower of bone, wings, and gore. And that takes care of 2 of our units. The good news is that actually goes and panics the Wolf Chariot. So it fails its panic test and it takes off from the closest enemy unit, which would be my Crypt Horrors. So it's going to tear off across the board back to its own table edge that way. That helps for sure. In further moves, I really just do not like where my Necromancer is stationed right now. Even though the Wolf Chariot took off and I don't have to worry about him shooting bows at me right now, those squigs are getting really close and I'm not very maneuverable when I'm still a unit. So my Necromancer is going to leave that skeleton and he is going to go behind the ghoul unit. There is a real danger here because that Fanatic, if he gets really lucky, he can just zip through everything and run into my own Necromancer and kill me that way. That's pretty unlikely. Plus, I'm going to try and blow him up in the magic phase, but that's what I'm going for. So I'm going to kind of spread out a little bit, try and protect that dude a little bit. It's not a very solid center now with just that skeleton musician holding the middle of my force. But that does lead us to my magic phase. I'm going to go and I'm going to use the Ruby Ring of Ruin, and sure enough, I do manage to blow up the Fanatic in front of my ghouls. That's one threat that I don't have to think about anymore. And my opponent tries to stop it, but he doesn't manage, so I'm really happy about this. I do manage to get the Invocation of Nehek off. So I'm going to grow back 6 skeletons, and I'm going to heal the wound with the lore attribute on my Necromancer. So this is a good thing. And leading off that success, we go into the close combat phase, and the Corpse Cart smashes into the Troll and manages to cause 2 wounds, which is actually really good. The Troll doesn't manage to get any wounds through on the Corpse Cart, so he ends up losing by 3, but that little jerk goes and manages to pass his break test. I mean, he's got the Night Goblin General there, who is, I believe, leadership 8, so he needs a 5 or less. But he does get a reroll for the Battle Standard Bearer, and that brave Troll does manage to do it, so we're going to go into another round of combat with these 2 guys. And so it's the Orc and Goblin turn, and the first thing that's going to happen is the Night Goblins are going to declare a charge on the ghouls now that I've gone and blown up the Fanatic in their way. And they actually go and fail it, so they just shuffle forward a little bit. It does look like it's kind of a longer charge, but that does give me a little bit of breathing room before I have to deal with those guys. In the compulsory moves phase, the Goblin Wolf Chariot does not rally, and it comes real close to the edge of the table off in that far right-hand corner of the board. The squigs make a very slow advance moving through that Chemerian quicksand, and we are on to the close combat phase. And now this combat is going to start favoring the Troll. The Troll is strength 5, my guys are like strength 3. I get a pile of attacks, but they are not quality attacks. So the Troll does go and smash 1 wound through on my Corpse Cart, and so I'm going to take an additional wound due to the crumbling that I take from the combat resolution. So he's starting to tie it up here. My Corpse Cart has got 2 wounds left, the Troll has 1, and there's everything to fight for these guys. So I forgot to mention this. The round before, the round where I was being like not an idiot and not charging my ghouls into that Night Goblin unit, what I did in fact was I took my Wraith, who was standing right there, and I moved him into the ghouls. So sorry I forgot about that, but the round before in my movement phase, the Mr. Grimm goes and hops into the Dwellers Beyond. And so now I kind of have a pretty nice unit to go and fight these Night Goblins with, who have been kind enough to fail their charge. And so I'm going to go and charge into them on my turn. So I easily make that charge, and we're going to fight. The Necromancer still doesn't like the idea of going into that skeleton unit. There's still not a whole lot of them, and those squigs do look really angry. So he's actually going to bear left a little bit more, and he's going to go and try and stay behind the people in combat. My horrors actually move back a little bit. They're far away from the support of the Necromancer. They do not want to get into a fight with those squigs right away. We're going to try and decide this game over on the left, where currently I think things are to my advantage. So I get a real nice break in my magic phase. I don't get any of my blasty spells off, but I do get a boosted invocation of Nehek off. So that's going to affect the corpse cart, that's going to affect the skeletons. Listen, everyone goes back to full strength. This makes a big deal. Now, this was kind of the analysis that I was talking about at the end of the last game. This is going to be a story of 2 games. In one game, I do not get my invocation of Nehek off. I want to heal my stuff, and it doesn't happen, and all my stuff dies. In this game, all of a sudden my invocations are coming off, and it's looking like a much different game. Those squigs are still a big problem, but man, my stuff was looking hurt, and all of a sudden that troll fight looks good, those skeletons look good, and my necromancer is feeling quite a bit safer, so I'm real happy about the magic right now. And the good news continues in the close combat phase. So in the close combat phase, I go and I challenge, I believe, because my Wraith can't be hurt, and I know he doesn't have any magic weapons in there, and I don't even think he has a champion, so he's either got to take his BSB or his general into the non-fighting ranks, or he's got to kind of put one of those up and hope that the Wraith doesn't kill them. So I'm not exactly sure what happens. He may have sent his BSB up, and I failed to kill him, or may have sent his general up, and I doubt it though. But however it shakes out, we end up killing 5 night goblins, which is nice. He kills 4 of my ghouls in return, but he is going to go and break from combat. So I think I think it's a little bit of an unlucky roll. He tries twice, he doesn't get it. He probably needs like a 7 or something. Anyway, that means that his battle standard bearer is going to die because you can't take your standards with you, so he's dead. I, of course, tried to run after him, but these ghouls are very, very slow right now. Who knows? Maybe the cold emanating from Mr. Grimm is slowing them all down, but we don't come anywhere close to catching these. And unfortunately, we're sitting right there with our flanks exposed to that squigs, which is not what we want. But you know what? I'll take good news when I can, and so far, this is a good thing. And speaking of good things, the corpse cart goes and manages to kill off that troll. Just takes that last wound off of it and goes and reforms. That does mean that he is in that swamp right there, but that's generally not going to matter. He's not overrunning or pursuing right now. And so he's going to line up facing right, because those squigs are going to come in to my ghouls. I don't think they're going to kill the ghouls all in one go. So my plan is I'm going to send that corpse cart in on my next round to try and help those guys out. So yeah, sure enough, it's the Orc and Goblin phase, and those squigs go and charge straight into those ghouls. That's going to be a giant mess. The Night Goblins are going to go ahead and rally. We knew they would. However, the Wolf Chariot does not rally. That is an empty corner of the board where that Wolf Chariot decided this is all too scary for him, and so he's going to take off. He'll see you guys back at camp. The other squig unit slogs a little bit forward into the swamp, but doesn't really accomplish very much, and so we go on to the close combat phase. So the Wraith is going to make way. He's going to move into the edge, and like my opponent did last time, I'm actually going to cut out one column of those squigs. So since he's on the right, the squigs on the far right of the squig unit, they can only attack the Wraith, and of course they're not going to hurt it because it's ethereal. So basically I'm repaying the favor that my opponent paid to me in the last round when he used a challenge to cut out a column of my ghouls. Anyway, it is exactly the feeding frenzy that you would expect. The squigs go and kill 10 ghouls, which definitely hurts, but I didn't expect much better than that. The ghouls in return, the ghouls and the Wraith don't do bad in return. They are going to go ahead and kill 5 squigs. We are going to just lose a ton of my guys. I think total I'm going to lose like 14 ghouls. The squigs are going to reform. They're going to kind of bunch up a little bit, try and preserve those squig attacks, try and keep those hits coming. I try and reform, but I completely failed that leadership test, so I am stuck with those squigs in my flank. We'll see if that corpse cart can help that situation a little bit. So it is my turn, and I am going to go and charge that corpse cart right away. Now, I am starting in a swamp, So, and I believe this is the mystery swamp, if I'm not mistaken. So this means that if I end my movement phase in there, I'm gonna have to roll a die to see if like a Famir goes and eats my corpse card. But in this case, it does not, because I'm not gonna end my movement phase there. But I am gonna start it there during a charge, which means I have to make a dangerous terrain test, which I go and fail, and that's of course bad for chariots because they take a bunch of wounds if they do that. Anyway, I fail my regen test, but I do get lucky. I only take 2 wounds because that could have just destroyed the whole thing. But yeah, the corpse cart crashes in there, tries to protect those ghouls. The rest of my units just kind of shuffle a tiny bit. We're in no rush to go anywhere. In my magic phase, I use the Ruby Ring of Ruin to blow up 3 squigs and 1 herder from the unit creeping its way through that swamp way over on the right. And man, oh man, when it rains it pours, I get another invocation off. Another big invocation goes and heals 2 wounds off the corpse cart again. Man, this thing would be dead if I hadn't gotten all those things, but instead it's at full health. I'm going to heal up a nice 6 ghouls, so suddenly they're looking a lot safer. And I finish off just a monstrous magic phase. I'm getting everything I could possibly want. I get Gaze of Nagash off on that far right squig herd. Again, I roll kind of low for this. I don't do great, but I will 100% take it. I kill off 1 squig and 3 herders, and that unit no longer threatens those crypt horrors over on the right. And so I've basically neutralized one big threat that I was worried about. So with the help of the corpse cart's impact hits, I have gone and killed off all of the squigs. 1 ghoul dies in the process, but they are all polished off. I don't even have to worry about them exploding and causing more damage to my guys. I do go and overrun with my corpse cart. Now, I just barely missed that squig unit there, which is absolutely fine. That doesn't bother me very much. I am going to go through that Kemrian quicksand again. Fortunately, it doesn't have special rules for me dying with the corpse cart because it's a chariot. It has special rules for monstrous infantry, monstrous cavalry, monstrous beasts, and I'm not any of those things, but I do have to make a dangerous terrain test, and I go and fail it again, but I get lucky again, and I only take a single wound. And now it is my opponent's turn, and there is nothing better for him to do than to send that big unit of night goblins into combat with my ghouls. He still has a lot of night goblins, he still has his general with a great weapon, and he still has a bunch of nets. So this still could go okay for my opponent. So again, I'm going to challenge with the Wraith, and my opponent doesn't really have a ton of choice but to send his war boss into contact. So you can see those guys paired off over there on the right. And it turns out neither of us accomplish much of anything. His nets do net my crypt ghouls. I still do manage, probably with a really nice set of poison rolls, to kill off 7 goblins, which is a lot. He gets pretty unlucky and only kills off 1 ghoul in return. The goblins are going to hold, so this combat will go on into a next round, but boy, this is not looking good for Captain Jackpot. And so it is back to my turn. So now all of a sudden those Stone Guardians are feeling a lot more confident. So they go ahead, they charge into those squigs over there on the right. They go through some of that swamp. They do not manage to roll a failure on the dangerous terrain, so I'm not going to take any losses from that. Oh, and all of a sudden my necromancer feels like it's safe enough to join the skeletons, so he parks himself way off, away from everybody, down in the bottom there, and my corpse cart just whoop, just goes and makes a virtual pivot, just turns around to face the night goblins. So here's a thing that I don't know if people really appreciate me doing, but I figured this game is kind of won. All I have to do is not blow it. So I don't cast any magic spells at all. I don't even have a target for the Ruby Ring. I think I'm just not going to risk the miscast. Why do that? I think we got this, guys. So we go on to the hand-to-hand combat phase, and the Stone Guardians do real well. They kill everything except for a single herder. He's got to make a break test of a double 1. Hey, what do you know? He does it. There's that double 1 right now. That is the bravest herder in the world. I don't think it's going to help him long term, but in the meantime, he is holding ground against these colossal monstrosities. So again, we go on to the ghouls and the night goblin combat. I'm thinking my opponent may have netted himself in this one because this is just looking bad for him. So he's going to be down strength. I'm going to go and I'm going to kill off 6 night goblins, and I'm going to wound his war boss. In return, he's going to only kill off a single ghoul. So this is bad. He no longer has the steadfast rule because we have the same number of ranks. They go ahead and they break. They get run down by my dudes. We just finish up the last round of the game, go on to Orc and Goblin round. We've just got the single fight of the Crypt Horrors against the Squig Herder. Yeah, the the crypt horrors smash him into a paste, and that is the end of the game. So after a pretty good loss in the first round, the vampire counts have come back and tied things up, getting a win in the second round. Yeah, it's kind of, the way it feels is that there's a critical point in these small games with the vampire counts. There's a point where you really want to heal up your guys, and if the heals come off, then you're looking real good. Then it all sort of escalates. Then your opponent gets ground down, and you're still fighting up. Whereas if you don't get that heal off, then your guys start dropping really fast, and things start escalating in the opposite direction. So first round was a situation where things went badly. I didn't get my spell off, and the second round was the opposite. So I'm feeling pretty good about that. Those were two really fun games. Orcs and Goblins, always fun, and of course this is Squigs and Goblins. So I'm not saying it's better, but it's definitely good fun. Those Squigs are dangerous. They did eat a big hole in my ghoul flank. They just devour anything they touch, and then they just fall over if anything hits them on the head. Leave a comment below if you have any questions or concerns or anything like that. I'm going to try and be a little bit better about producing these videos. I have a bunch to get through. We have a whole round. I've still got a Batman game. Anyway, thanks for watching. I will see you on the next one.